Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
And welcome into the Prospect Corner for another episode here talking about prospects, and we're knee deep into World Junior stuff now. If you've been following the Hockey Writers, you have seen a few major previews coming out already. Team Canada, Team USA, and others have come out already. You know, we're going to start our preview shows officially now, and we're not going to start with the big powers. That'll be a little later once we get going. But we're going to start off with some of the lesser teams. They deserve some love as well, because there's, you know, quite a few players that I want to kind of take a look at as well too. So we're going to start with Germany and Austria, two of the teams that are probably going to not make a lot of noise in this tournament. But you know, we've seen upsets in the past with guys that just come in. It's rare, but it happens. So we'll talk about a few players that could be guys that could stand out in this tournament. And, you know, there is still guys that are going to be looking towards the draft and, you know, contracts as well. So this is a showcase for them. Even though their team may not do well, these are players that are probably going to have to, you know, step it up and show what they can do to make an impact in the NHL, AHL, whatever. Scouts are going to be watching them. So we're going to start with Germany, and big news. Their preliminary roster was just released, and two big names were not on the list. Lukas Reichel, we talked about him before in the last episode, and JJ Peterka, two relatively high draft picks that are making impacts with their teams, but were not invited. Greg, we'll go to you on this. Were you surprised that Peterka and Reichel, more particularly Reichel, was not invited to this roster?
Yeah, it's very surprising. But according to a report, Brendan Holmes from FC Hockey shared a report out of Germany that it said that it appears that actually this was a decision by both of these players, that they didn't want to leave their teams and come over more than the teams keeping them back. So if that's the case, you know, it is what it is. It's a tough blow for Germany. Obviously these would have been their top two players, so they really got to use that next man up mentality and see who's going to step up for a team that's, you know, lost a lot of their firepower, almost all of their firepower from last year's team. Peterka, you know, he's got 4 goals and 18 points in 17 games for the Rochester Americans, so he's doing really good. Another issue, maybe just that came in this, I'm just, you know, spitballing here, but, you know, Rochester's got games. Their games this weekend have been postponed for COVID protocol. So maybe that's an issue where it's just not worth it at this time. Or he's just, you know, hey, I'm tearing it up in the AHL. I'm not going to like derail that momentum. And unfortunately for Reichel, he's another kid off to a great start. He's leading the Rockford Ice Hogs in goals and points. He got injured last Sunday. He took a nasty hit into the boards. He was already kind of on his way down, and then a defender then continued to hit him, and he went face first into the boards and was pretty wobbly and needed some help off the ice. He's in concussion protocol, has not played since, missed their game Wednesday, is not playing this weekend. I talked to Ice Hogs interim head coach Anders Sorensen earlier in the week, and he said he was with the team. He's not skating, but he's in good spirits. So it's just a matter of when he can clear concussion protocol to get back on the ice. So I don't know if that was a factor in this too, or if he had already made up his mind that he didn't want to go. So it sounds like it's the players that said they want to go, and it might not be the same for a German player at that age to want to represent, say, you know, a 19-year-old from Canada or the United States or Sweden or one of these countries ingrained with hockey tradition, where, you know, you want to wear that maple leaf on your on the sweater to represent your country. That's all that matters at that age. It might not be the same for these young German players as the game is kind of just starting to really pick up over there. So if it's their decisions, that stinks for Germany, but they're playing pro hockey here in the States, so it's hard to fault them for that either.
No, that's a good point. I mean, the thing is the national pride may not be as high as, like you say, with Canada and the US and stuff like that. So they're just going to have guys that like next man up mentality, because there are other guys in this roster. Let's talk about that. Peter, who do you think will step up? I mean, they still have Florian Elias. He was dominant in the last tournament, but was it just because he was on a line with Tim Stützle and JJ Peterka, right? I mean, was he a product of those players, or can he be a leader on this team? And who else do you have tabbed to do that?
I mean, the expectation is, he's probably going to be the leader of this team right now. I mean, like you mentioned, he probably rides the coattails of two highly touted drafted prospects in the NHL right now who, I believe all of them had about at least 10 points or at least 8 or 10 points for Team Germany onto that miraculous run to the quarterfinals. And they were if they had Reichel and Peterka, they would have set expectations on that again, make the quarterfinals, because their roster, they have offensive talents that can translate to the NHL level. But it's offense is definitely going to be tough to come by right now for Team Germany. You do have Elias who can maybe fill in that role, but you also have to look at, depth or the depth scoring from the rest of the team. You're probably looking at Joshua Szymanski, who has dual citizenship, playing at the junior German level, coming over, playing at the OJHL with the Brantford 99ers and Owen Sound Attack in 2019-20, and then going back to play in Germany. So you have a player that's played at the North American level, played on that ice surface. He's got accustomed to that. You're also probably looking at Justin Volek, Maximilian Glotzel, Daniel Leonhardt as other potential names that could try and carry the offensive load. And obviously he's still injured. If he was available, there's no doubt that Julian Lutz would have been one of their go-to offensive players, who's projected to be a top 40 pick in this year's draft, maybe knock on the door as a late first rounder. Given his size, given his power forward-like mentality and his skill set, I think he would have been a really great complementary piece to the names that I mentioned, and would have made them a little bit deeper and possibly a little bit more dangerous offensively. But this year is not going to be like last year, and you wanted to see this team take a major step forward because they looked like they were in a major competitive spot right now. And you look at the way Matthew Zator is playing, the way Leon Draisaitl is just tearing up the NHL right now. So if they're able to try and develop a few more names that could be NHL top tier players like they have right now and what they're seeing right now with their prospects, German hockey is going to be in a really great spot. But I think this year is going to be maybe a step backwards.
Yeah, it's not the days of Christian Ehrhoff and Marco Sturm and guys like that, right? Yeah. So, and even then, they weren't the strongest team, but you still had these NHLers that could carry them, right?
Definitely. And shifting over to the defense right now, basically one of their two drafted prospects in the NHL, Luca Münzenberger, will be joining the team when everyone else travels to North America. Matt, what impact does he have on the defense, and what is going to be his NHL potential going forward? And can this tournament help him?
I mean, it can definitely help the guy. I mean, he is a draft pick, third rounder this past draft by the Edmonton Oilers, and I mean, he's not gonna move the needle offensively. I mean, that's just not the type of defenseman he is. He's a good two-way guy. He's more the defensively oriented type defenseman, so he'll be more on that defensive side. But I mean, he's only one guy on this team. I mean, there's going to be, whenever they play, this going to be an onslaught of, playing against these powerhouses like Canada, US, Russia, Finland, Czech Republic. I mean, Slovakia is going to have a hard, when we talk about them, they're a hard team to play against too. So he's going to have his hands full, as he's probably going to be the leader on that defense core though, because he does have that potential to be in the NHL, that type of two-way guy that I think the Edmonton Oilers need down the road. I don't know if he's going to turn into that in the NHL level, but he's got that good defensive game that I think can succeed in the NHL. He's got the size as well. So I think he's got the potential to be an NHL defenseman, but in this tournament, he's probably going to play a lot and going to be having to face a lot of talent. and we'll see how he does. But again, these types of games and these types of tournaments are where you showcase for the future, and we'll see how he does. He's playing in the NCAA with the University of Vermont right now, and got a couple assists. But again, his offense is not where you look at his game, and it's his defensive game, and I think that's what is going to make his future in the NHL.
Definitely going to earn a lot of minutes at this tournament. No doubt about it.
That's for sure. I mean, from the defense to the goaltending, again, it's the same thing. They're going to be onslaught, 50 shot games. These are going to be big numbers these goaltenders are going to face. And most likely will be Florian Bugle going to get the bulk of these starts. He's returning from the last year's tournament. He played a lot of the games there. And there is also another goaltender that was drafted from, this past draft as well, in Nikita Quat. And he's a 6th round pick of the Carolina Hurricanes. Needs some work with his game. And I mean, goaltending, the development path is quite long for these guys. So again, we're not sure. I don't think he probably will get a lot of time here, but being just at this tournament, if he makes the roster, because this is just a preliminary roster. So, I mean, he may not even be on it, but, even if he's just there, soak it in and get that experience, because a lot of these guys is their first experience in these tournaments. So, but Bugle's probably going to get the most of the starts, and he's going to be in tough. That's for sure. So that's Germany. Let's do a prediction on this is probably going to be pretty easy because there's not a lot of big names on it, but top 3 players at the end of this tournament, who do you think will be in that top 3? Peter, we'll start with you.
Definitely going to rely on Florian Bugle. There's no doubt about that, considering the fact that at last year's tournament, he played in 3 games, was 2-1, 897 save percentage, and 295 goals against average. So he's definitely going to be relied on to be the backstop in nets. I would like to think that Florian Ellis is still a name that's going to make his way up there, maybe even Justin Volok. But I mentioned him as well as someone who could probably carry the offensive load of Maximilian Glotzel. As I mentioned previously before, even though that he is a defenseman, he's maybe somebody that can probably jump up and surprise a lot of names, especially on the back end. Elite Prospects is basically from 2019 says that he's probably the biggest German D talent, not named Morris Seider. He's got the big frame, strong defensively, accurate passer, and strong skater. And that's from Yannick Beckler, again, from Elite Prospects, or a scout that's being quoted on Elite Prospects as well. So I'm thinking maybe if there's one player that maybe could step up and maybe alleviate some of that offensive load, maybe he could surprise a lot of names. But if we're going by defense as well, names, maybe you're also looking at Luca Münzenberger as, one of their top 3 players as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. Greg, do you have any other names, or are you going to kind of repeat those ones?
I was really hoping that Germany had another player named Florian, so I can do 3 Florians. But I couldn't find one, so that's too bad. Obviously Elias and Bugle, those are guys, and I'm going to go Munzenberger too. Those guys, they were there last year. They played, they produced. These are the guys, if Germany wants any chance to compete and possibly sneak into, the elimination round again, these are the guys that have to be their best 3 players for them to have any kind of success. So those are the guys I'll predict. The experience, and I know they have a lot of Germany does have quite a few returning players, but these are the guys that were productive and returning.
Yeah.
And that experience, it's a lot. And there's not you don't see a lot of continuality from year to year in this tournament. So the fact that Germany does have a lot of returning players could help them out a lot. And maybe get some guys we weren't thinking about produce, but these are the guys. It's Elias, Bugle, Munzenberger. Those are the guys. They got to perform. So I'm going with them.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat the 3. I mean, those guys are going to be the guys going to have the bulk of that responsibility to try to make this team go places. And I mean, they're underdogs. Let's just say that. I mean, they're not they're not expected to do much of this tournament, but like I say, surprises have happened in the past. And because teams go into these games and saying, oh, we'll be able to walk right over them. It's not always the case. So it can, goaltender can get hot for one game, and that's where you get problems. So we'll see what happens. That's what's great about these types of tournaments, because you never know. So yeah, that's Germany. We've hit that midpoint in the show. We're going to talk about Austria in a second here, but this is the Prospects Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, the like button, and on YouTube, there's a bunch of other shows, Blackhawks Banter, Maple Leafs Lounge, Chicks and Sticks, Grindline. There's a whole bunch of shows that are on this network that, check it out, because, Grindline just dropped a great show. Tim Peel was on the show yesterday, and he was great stories from this guy. Check that out, because it's a lot of stuff he had. He was a referee in the NHL for a long time, so a lot of great stories there, and lots of great stories on the hockeywriters.com, because World Juniors is starting up, NHL season's still going on, lots of stuff happening. And of course, sign up for our Morning Skate newsletter at morningskate.io. Lots of great stories in there as well. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on. So let's continue. So on with Austria. Their team is probably they're going to be overlooked. I mean, there's not a lot of expectations for this team. I don't believe they were in the tournament last year. So, I mean, it's going to be a new thing for a lot of these guys. So let's start with the guy that was just announced on this roster from the Ottawa 67s, Vinzenz Rohrer. I don't know if I said that right, but he's gone off a great start with the 67, 7 goals, 18 points in 24 games. Peter, what do you like about him? I mean, he's pretty close to who you are, 67s there. What do you like about him? Why did they choose him for this tournament? I mean, he's very young. He's a draft eligible prospect. What do you think?
They need offense, and given the fact that you don't have Marco Rossi, given the fact that I believe the stats only show that they only scored 1 goal last year, so you're going to have to try and get some offensive going, and look no further than Vinzenz Rohrer, because of the fact that he might be that underage factor, 17 years old heading into a 19-year-old tournament, but I really like his competitive edge and the way that he plays with intensity. He's got really great speed, great hands, strong skill sets. It's going to be tough to replace what Marco Rossi meant to this team last year, but you have a capable forward. Granted, as young as he is, he's probably going to be relied on quite a bit, maybe going into that top 6 role because of his skill set, of his speed, of his playmaking abilities. I do think that he's going to be a really great player for them. I think that it's tough to say whether or not they're going to, make a significant impact, but he's definitely going to be one of their key players every single time they're on the ice. And other teams are going to have to look forward to that and take note of him, because he could be very dangerous offensively. You mentioned his stat line, the 11 assists and 18 points. He's acclimated very well to the OHL level, playing at the playing at a higher pace, higher level, and against tougher competition as well. So he's holding his own. The fact that he's going into this tournament against, maybe some of the players that he's gone up against is going to help out as well. I do think that he's going to be very capable and relied on heavily. I think they've got a really great player for them, and he's going to be a major factor for them.
Yeah, for sure. So I correct myself. They were at the tournament last year. Marco Rossi was on it. So I'll correct myself there. My mind just went blank for a sec. So yeah, he's going to be a guy that's going to have the spotlight on him, and he is very young. But he's also got a chance to showcase his talent for the draft. We'll talk about that. Greg, where do you see him going in the draft? I mean, there's a lot of talent in this draft. Do you see him going high, or is he just going to be that type of mid-round pick?
I think heading into the season, he was probably pegged around that 3rd round area. I think Central Scouting had him as a B prospect, so that 2nd, 3rd round area. He's had a great season last year. He captained his U17 team in Switzerland. He had 28 goals and 47 points. Had 3 goals in 2 playoff games, and contributed, to their U20 team as well. So putting up points is nothing new to him. And I think playing and what he's done in the UHL has definitely put him on the rise a bit. But as you said, it's a very talented draft class this year, as you'll get from all of our coverage over at thehockeywriters.com. We're going to start busting out a ton of profiles. There's a lot of guys. So in a different year, like say last season, maybe he can sneak into the second round, but it's going to be tough to get in that second round this year. But I see him going. He's a solid 3rd round pick right now. And that's not a knock on him in any form. He's a very skilled player. He's got a high hockey IQ. He could score and he could set up his teammates. He's a little on the small side, but again, we're talking about a teenager. He's got plenty of time to fill out. So yeah, I would say, if I was a betting man, and thank God I'm not, because I'm wrong more times than I'm right, I'd put him somewhere, in that third, I'd see him going in the 3rd round, but that could change if he keeps lighting it up in Ottawa. Maybe he sneaks into the 2nd round.
Yeah, and again, this tournament's going to do a lot for him as well. So if he kind of lights it up here, he's going to get a lot of scouts' radar and could be in that range, right? That's what this tournament's all about, is get these guys the showcase. And if there's draft eligibles that are playing, that's, part of it. So let's talk about a guy that wasn't drafted in this 2021 draft. He was on a couple of our lists, I believe, is Senna Peeters, playing junior here in North America as well. Peter, do you think a strong tournament from him? Do you think he sneaks into this 2022 draft in his second go around?
Again, you want to be optimistic, and you want to see him make that next jump. The fact that, I thought maybe he should have been drafted, in his first year, didn't quite have it. Was above a point per game in his second go round, didn't get drafted. So maybe 3rd time's the charm. I think maybe right now, I think it's just the consistency factor. And I think maybe that's gone into his head a little. Obviously the hope is that he has a strong tournament. He is an impact player for them. And maybe he does catch the scouts' attention. Maybe he's made some improvements over in his overall game where he was lacking in certain areas. He does have good speed. He does have good hands, a pretty good shot as well. I think it's just maybe his overall play and that consistency factor is maybe why teams weren't so quick to jump the gun and maybe select him right away. I think maybe they want to see a bit more of him. They get an opportunity right now because he is going to be another player that's going to be relied upon, just like Rohrer, given the fact that he is a returning player. So hopefully he's being relied on in a leadership role. Maybe they could see more out of him in that kind of regards. If he does get drafted, you're probably looking at around maybe 5th or 6th round. And again, is usually when you see an undrafted player, maybe the first go round, there's something that you miss and you select them the second time. Okay, great. But now you're going on a second time with where Senna Peeters has gone undrafted. Not necessarily saying this is his last chance, but he's got a lot to prove this time around, and hopefully this tournament is it.
Yeah, and like Greg mentioned about the depth of this draft too. So we'll see what happens, but if he has a strong tournament, you never know. Get on a scout's radar that really likes him. So we'll see what happens. Greg, anyone else on this team that you have an eye on other than Peeters and Rohrer? There's a few other guys on this team.
Yeah, I think one guy that'd be fun to watch and see what he can do is Marco Kasper, the forward. This is a guy that is highly rated. He was an A prospect in the Central Scouting watch list, and when you look up, all the pundits, experts, pre-draft lists, they all have him going late first round. So this is definitely a guy to keep an eye on, and he could be definitely really make a name for himself in this tournament, playing for a team that doesn't have a lot of pro prospects on it. He could really, use that kind of big fish, small pond mentality and stand out from the rest of his team. And that can help him go a long way. He's currently playing in the Swedish Hockey League, one of their top programs with Rogel, and he's got his numbers don't look great. He's got 4 points, 4 goals, and 6 points in 21 games. But as we know, for teenagers to get meaningful minutes, expect in Europe and in that league in particular, it just doesn't happen unless you're, a superstar. So he's pretty much playing minimal fourth line minutes, but he's still making the best out of it. He's got a lot of things that the pro scouts look for. He's first thing that jumps off the page is his speed. He is an extremely fast skater, and today's NHL is all about speed, and he's got that already. And, that's why he's highly rated. And another issue, not an issue, but another aspect to his game is he's a two-way player. He plays very good defensively as well. Yeah, he can add some offense, and his speed creates offense, but his speed also allows him to play really good defense. He can shut down opponents. He can play against the top offensive players and hold his own. He's also very good. That goes along with his speed and his skating. He's very good with the puck and tough to get off the puck. He's good at shielding it when he's carrying it up to ice. These are things that in this tournament are going to come up huge. If he could use his speed to create some offense for a team that we just mentioned, they had 1 goal in 4 games last year, and they had Marco Rossi. So this is going to be a team that, I don't know, they may not score this year. Who knows? We'll see. But if they do, I think Kasper is going to be a guy that's leading the charge. So he'll be one of those guys that even, hey, if Austria is down 7-0 in the third period, to Sweden, which probably will happen, he's a reason to keep watching because he can make a difference. And I think this is his chance to really solidify himself as a first-round pick heading into the draft.
Yeah, 100%. And I mentioned this is a tournament that the teams aren't going to be doing. They're not going to be winning the medals. They're not going to be doing that, but the players are still playing the game. And this is where, scouts look and they have to play hard. It's not like, oh, we'll fold it in because, we're playing against Canada. We're going to get beat 14-0. They still got to play the game. They still got to showcase their game. So this is the individual part of it. They got to still do it. So this is an important tournament for a lot of these players. And, so it's still exciting to watch because you have to isolate your focus on a lot of these players. You can't be looking at the team. And that's where the scouts are going to come in big in this tournament for sure. So yeah, that's Austria. They're probably going to have a tough time winning games. They're going to have a tough time scoring goals, but we'll watch these players closely. And I'm sure NHL scouts are going to be watching them very closely. In this tournament, especially because it's in North America, in Canada here as well. So yeah, that's the first 2 teams we'll focus on. Let's finish the show with of course, our prospects of the week. Peter, who do you got for prospect of the week this week?
Well, it's kind of a good thing I said Brennan Othman last week, and despite the fact that he wasn't added to Team Canada's camp, he was named to the CHL Team of the Week. So congrats to him. But my prospect of the week this time around is still in the OHL, and I'm going with Wyatt Johnston from the Windsor Spitfires. Just an absolutely insane amount of skill, IQ, and puck sense that he has. His vision is just off the charts. Currently, he's tied for 5th in scoring along with Matej Petrov and Rory Cairns. But 36 points in 21 games, that's really great production, considering the fact that he didn't play any meaningful games this year aside from the U18 tournament. And in the last week or so, from the November 27th till right about now, he has 11 points, 2 goals, and if my math is correct, 9 assists. So he's looking really good. Great playmaker, great awareness, great sentiment, all around 2-way game. Wyatt Johnston's my player of the week, prospect of the week.
Yeah, our player, whatever. They're both. Greg, who you got for your prospect of the week?
I am going to go with Chicago Blackhawks prospect and Rockford Ice Hogs forward Evan Barrett. Little shameless self-promotion. I did put a little feature on him this week, but that's not the only reason I'm picking him. He's like, this is a guy Blackhawk fans have been waiting for a while. He was drafted in the 3rd round way back in 2017. He he had a really good college career. He averaged just under a point per game playing for Penn State in the NCAA over 3 seasons. He was one of those guys who kept hearing the name, and we're Blackhawk fans are just starved for any kind of offensive prospect, because frankly, outside of Lucas Reichel, there isn't a whole lot happening in the forward group right now. But he had a slow start to the season. He played his first professional season last year. It was with the Ice Hogs. He had 5 goals and 14 points in 27 games. Good, not great. But again, last year was such a goofy year. You just kind of throw it out as far as development goes. There's just a lot of strange things going on. This year, got off to a little bit of a slow start, had a couple points in his first couple games, then kind of disappeared and was even a healthy scratch for a couple games. And then since returning to the lineup, he's got points in 5 of his last 7 games, 4 goals, 6 points in that span. And this is not including the Saturday game in Grand Rapids. But he even said when I got to talk to him this week that he took that time as time to reflect on what he wasn't doing. He admitted he wasn't playing his game. He was trying to be somebody else. And he went back to focusing on his style of game and just playing within himself. And it's been working. And as I mentioned earlier, Lucas Reichel got hurt. Well, Brett Conley last week got hurt too. So the Ice Hogs went into Wednesday's game without their top 2 scorers in Conley and Reichel. And Josiah Slavin, the younger brother Jacob, was recalled by the Blackhawks, so that 3 of their top players out. They're on the road against Milwaukee, and Barrett comes up with 2 big goals, and they win 3-1. So he's finally turning into that player that the Hawks need him to be, and he's climbing up the rank. This is a guy that, for a couple years was one of their top prospects, and when I did the top 10 prospects before the season, he wasn't even on it. So, he's getting to be that player they drafted, and it's big for him because this was kind of a make or break season for him. At 22, you got to start showing, you got to start moving from potential to production, and he's starting to do that, and that's a good sign. So I'm giving him my prospect of the week nod.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive on what he's been doing lately, and I'm going to go with OHL as well here and talk about Connor Lockhart, Canucks draft pick. He's been on fire lately. He's kind of started the season off a little slow, but he's now got 15 points in 19 games. He's been scoring the last couple weeks. He's got 3 points in his last 3, and scored the OT winner the other day as well. This guy he's small, but he's super dynamic. He's so, he's very exciting offensively, and on a team that the Canucks need anyone that they can, because like I said, they don't have a lot either. Podkolzin is pretty much graduated now as a prospect. Who do they have? Aiden McDonough I talked about earlier. Connor Lockhart is now kind of up. He's climbing the ranks in my books here, because he's one of those guys that's just, he's small, but he's so good. He's so tenacious in the forecheck, and he's creative offensively, and he's starting to produce for the Erie Otters here. So this is a guy that's going to be a guy to watch for the Canucks, and on a team that needs a lot of excitement coming up. So we'll see what he does in the future, but he's definitely my prospect of the week. I've been seeing him on my timeline a lot lately, so he's been doing a lot. So yeah, that's our prospects of the week. And that's another show. The World Juniors are getting going here very soon, on December 26th. So it's, this tournament is going to be fun to watch because there's a lot of talent, even though, we'll talk about Team Canada in the future. There's a lot of guys that weren't named to that roster, but, the one thing about Team Canada, you can ice 3 teams, like I said earlier, and be competitive. So, I mean, these guys that weren't named, it's nothing against their game. It's nothing against them. You look at these teams and they go with the players they think can win a tournament. And if they think that these guys won't, then they're not on the roster. And that's just how it goes. I mean, that's what it is in these tournaments, and that's how it shakes down. So it's still going to be exciting to watch, even though these guys weren't named to it. So yeah, next up, we'll be talking about the next couple teams. We're going to kind of go up the ladder. I mean, we're going to go to the highest teams at the end towards the tournament start. So people are waiting for Team Canada, you're gonna have to wait a little longer. Just be patient. We will get to them because they are the best teams. US, Canada, Russia, all those teams. So they will come. But these lesser teams need the love as well. So until next week, make sure you're hitting that like button on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel as well. Lots of great shows, the Morning Skate newsletter, at morningskate.io. We're on Discord. There's lots of great conversations in the Hockey Lounge. Daily downloads are almost every day as well. So there's tons of stuff going on. We got the draft coverage coming up. Basically, right after this tournament ends, we'll be starting to kind of work on those profiles, and we'll start, like Greg mentioned, we'll be rolling out a ton of them. So stay tuned for all that coverage, because World Juniors coverage, we got the previews started, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. We already got some out. Germany and Austria have yet to be published, but you'll read about them in the next week as well. So if you're waiting for those, they're coming up. So yeah, for Peter, Greg, and myself, this has been the Prospect Corner, and we'll see you next week for more.